good enough? Okay, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وأما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين الصلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your great deeds and a'mal, especially your commemoration and mourning for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and may He write our name among the true mourners of Abu Abdullah and give us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of his beautiful shrine and inshallah the benefits of his shafa'ah by reciting aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As we get closer and closer to the day of Ashura, let us include the souls of all of the marhumin and marhumat and all of the beloved ones, inshallah, by reciting your second of salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Last and inshallah the most important of all, with the most sincere of your intention, inshallah, we can recite our third salawat in the honor of Imam of Time, Hazrat Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajjalallah ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We're thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this bounty, one of a kind and unique bounty of being able to gather around under the beautiful banner of the Ahlul Bayt, especially the name of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salatu wassalam in the month of Muharram. So as we started talking about the principles of a Husseini lifestyle, we started having this discussion that what can we do as the follower, as the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah, as the followers of Abu Abdullah Hussein, so that we can adopt the principles of a lifestyle in which Imam al-Hussein and the companions followed. In that sense, we started talking about the famous sermon in which Imam al-Hussein recited on a couple of days leading to the Ashura, in which he talks about the purpose of creation and how the Ma'rifatullah becomes the corner or the backbone of literally every single deed and action that we do in this life. And he relates the Ma'rifatullah to Ma'rifatul Imam, meaning if you want to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to go through the path of Vilayat. If there is no Vilayat, there is no true sense of acknowledgement or Ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what's the path towards Vilayat? Imam mentions يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِمْ ta'atu. The topic of fellowship or following and obeying the orders and the commands and the teachings in which the Imam and the Imam of each time provides towards his follower. So it has to be theory among the action. Without the action, the theory by itself would not be sufficient. Then following the same path, we started talking about practical or more detailed principles of lifestyle of Al-Imam al-Hussein. The number one, which was the most and vital point, was the topic of tawakkul. Meaning that in every aspect, in every single deed that me and you as mu'min and mu'minah we conduct in our life, we must and we should and we have to have tawakkul. Whether we find ourselves cornered or not, whether we have other options available to us or not, whether we seek to have planning to complete that action or not. So That was one point. And number two, to constantly have tawakkul only on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing else. Not even the means in which we are used to on a daily basis. Very a simple example of this one, which may be difficult to work on, is the usage of the cell phones that we have. How easily we open our cell phone, we unlock it, and we look at our messages, and we look at our posts, and we look at our social, messages that comes through, and we answer, and we reply, and we do the likes and dislikes. If we do not get in touch, or if we do not get in the habit of seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even with the simplest of actions, such as checking my messages on my cell phone. That means what? That means in that moment, I have completely forgotten about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the question is, among the 24 hours that we get on a daily basis, how many hours do we spend on the phone? Has anybody calculated that? On a 24-hour basis, right? A lot of us, we have this habit that out of the habit, we just pull out our phone, we just look at the screen, even if there are no messages, just out of the habit. So just calculate this, what we say, the time which we have absolutely no use of, and add them up together, and you'll be surprised how much time are we actually wasting without having that intention or the focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that was, one of the principles of the Husseini lifestyle, to have constant tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Then following the topic of tawakkul came the topic of honor, in which we talked briefly about it last night. I don't want to bore you guys, but just give me a small review over it. Meaning the more the person, the devoted person, the believer, has that reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more true sense of honor will be given to him. The status of a true honor will be given to him, right? فَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ جَمِيعًا. That true sense of honor belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that we seek some of the attributes in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala contains, such as the true honor. So this honor that we may find in a social terminology, that's not, when it comes to a religious context, that could be or could not be, depending on the situation. Could be a true sense of honor, or in many cases, it could actually contradict what the true honor means. Perfect example of that one is the movement of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. As he was going through the movements, so many people criticized him. They said, when it comes to the strategies of war, when it comes to consultations of war, when it comes to, for example, political aspect of the situation, Imam could have done so many other deeds or so many other acts. He could have gone so many different ways. He could have gone to Yemen, for example. There were so many Shias and followers in Yemen. He could have done so many uprisings before reaching the land of Karbala. He could have easily done an uprising in the city of Medina, where he was well known and he had so many followers in the city. What would he move out to the city of Mecca? What would he leave city of Mecca? He would have took refuge to the holy Kaaba. A lot of stuff that, as we read through the history of Islam, so many predominant figures, they seek refuge to the holy Kaaba, right? So many options were available and laid in front of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Out of all of the options, the path of Karbala and the tragedy of Karbala is what he chose. So a lot of people, when you look at it from a political aspect, they have this criticism that how come the Imam al-Ma'sum, the leader in which we talk about his infallibility, took on the path that, based on what it appeared, it looked like a path of dishonor. He was humiliated, he was defeated, he was killed in the worst way possible. Not only him, but his entire companions and family members and in his family were kept as captives. So on the first look, they may say, where is the honor in this, right? But on the more in-depth look, when we understand what the honor actually means, when we talk about the reality of honor of the person being impenetrable, meaning whatever happens to him or her would not change the course that he or she has chosen. And inshallah, the good course, right? Some people are the opposite. They take a course completely towards the evil, yet again, no matter what comes in front of them, it cannot change their way. You don't call that honor. We call that stubbornness, right? Such as most of the people who were in power, and no matter what would happen, they would not, make that U-turn. They would not make that a change of the side, right? Yazid, for example, the best example of it. No matter what kind of reasoning, no matter what kind of sign, no matter what kind of advice, nothing will change him. That's not honor. That's the opposite of it, right? Stubbornness. Honor comes to the fact when the course is set for the for a spiritual path, for example. For a course that will bring us that sense of perfection, the human perfection. And at the same time, when we start the course, nothing will be able to change the way that we have chosen. That becomes the honor. The more we preserve within that course, the more we stay steady within the course, the more of the honor we have gained. That's what Imam al-Hussein says, Hayhad min nadhillah. Why does he say that? Because he says, for me, for the Imam al-Ma'asum. What's the definition of Imam al-Ma'asum? The Imam who has given the divine knowledge. The one who sees the reality of all of the actions. The ones who sees the reality of the sinful conducts, for example. He says, for me, the Imam al-Ma'asum, to give allegiance to someone like Yazid, who is Sharab al-Khamr, who's the one who drinks out in public, plays with dogs and monkeys, is the one who has absolutely no sense of respect for what we call it Sharia. This becomes zillah. This becomes changing the course. This becomes going away from the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid in front of us, the Ahlul Bayt. وَحَيْحَاتْ مِنَّ الزِّلَّةِ. When it comes to this topic, there's absolutely no way that none of us, the Ahlul Bayt, will be changing the course that we have chosen. So this is one of the effects of having that tawakkul. When tawakkul reaches that 100% level, that perfect level, alongside of it comes the topic of honor. Another topic that comes along with the tawakkul, again, roots of all of this is the tawakkul, is the second, or we can say the seventh principle of the Husseini lifestyle, which is to be able to sacrifice the most dear and the most precious item that we own. Anything that belongs to us. Now this goes according to the level of iman that we have, or the level of the tawakkul that we have, if you want to talk about it more thoroughly. The topic of sacrifice, right? So when it comes to the matter of sacrifice, people are at different level. Some people may sacrifice some of their wealth. Some people may sacrifice some of their time, some of their knowledge, some of their relations, some of their status, some of the connections that they may have, right? So it depends on the level in which the person relies. When we look at the ashab of Sayyid al-Shahada, what we see in common among all of them is what? They literally give up everything and everything that they own, including themselves, for the sake of Imam al-Hussein. So what brings this sense of ma'arifah all of a sudden to those 72 companions of Abu Abdullah Hussein? And how come we don't see this among the other companions? Although in parentheses, even between the ashab, there are different levels within them. And inshallah, once we go a little bit further into the discussion, I will share hadith to you about the different levels of the ashab. But in generally speaking, when it comes to their sense of ma'arifah, as if all of them have reached this common ground in which all they see in sense of prioritizing within their actions and deeds and choices, all they see is the razayat and contentment of Imam al-Hussein. So once this becomes the number one priority on their list, everything else loses its value. Everything else loses its status, right? So that's why they say the practical way to be able to get ourselves ready to sacrifice when it's needed. Again, thinking about it is easy. Yes, inshallah, if Imam of time comes, I will sacrifice everything for the sake of Imam of time. It's easy to say, but it starts with the little things from this moment till the time of Zuhur. What are the little things that we have to sacrifice even before the time of Zuhur? The very same decisions that we make on a daily basis, right? What do we sacrifice for the sake of Imam of time? We can answer that to ourselves. We don't have to say it out in public. From the morning that we wake up until the time that we go back to bed. What do we do for the sake of Imam of time? Besides praying, inshallah, besides paying some of the sadaqat, besides reciting the dua faraj, what practical action do we take to make sure that we keep our nafs under our control, so when the time comes, we will be ready to give up everything for the sake of the Imam of time? That becomes the golden question that every one of us should have an answer, personal answer to it, that this is the path that I have chosen. Why so? Again, we have different levels of attachments. Some of us are very attached to the job that we own, right? To the matter of income that we gain. Some of us may have attachment to the type of vehicle that we drive, to the car that we drive. Some of us may have very strong attachments to the way that we look, to the clothes that we wear, to the phone that we use. Why all of a sudden a particular phone becomes the number one hit among the society? Think about that. It's not only the functions of that cell phone. You probably can get the same functions from other models as well, right? Why all of a sudden a specific brand becomes like number one brand when it comes to marketing and to sales, right? The fashion, trends that we see. A lot of stuff comes from specific individuals in the society. We call them celebrities. But is that the path of honor for the mu'min and mu'mina, right? Or it's a completely different path. We just have to be careful not to follow and not to fall down for the sense of the mainstream, which is pushing us constantly every day and every moment and every hour of our life, right? Remember, the dunya itself, it's the number one person, you can say, who's constantly running tricks on every single one of us. Why so? That's the nature of it. That's the essence of it. It doesn't know anything other than this. It's a function of it. All it knows is how to fool people. And that's why we call it dunya, right? We call it dunov, the lowest of the low. It wants everything to be at the lowest of the low. But human being, human nature, human essence, human's reality is from the best of the best. Even higher than the angels, to the point that angels do sajda on Adam, yes? But that's not the Adam that we know who's living among the material world. It's the Adam who has gained that level of insaniyat. Insaniyat, I don't like to translate it to humanity because humanity has a wrong connotation to it. No, the insaniyat. So we have to work towards it. The path for it, that cornerstone is tawakkul. It starts with that. It follows with that seekness of a true honor. At the same time, be able to sacrifice or pay the price when it's needed. But how to practice for all of this? They say there are two primary elements for it. Number one, focus on the reality of the world that you're living in, right? Focus on the reality of the world that you're living in. And again, focus means not only in the 10 days of Muharram, right? Take these and for example, make notes of it. Every day you wake up in the morning, at least read it once, for example. That, hey, what type of a world am I living in? I'm not talking about geographical location, right? No, I'm talking about the terms of the features of the world that we are living in. How everlasting is the world that I'm living in? How everlasting are the objects and the items that I keep on planning to gain and accomplish in the very same world? How much would they last for me? Can I aim for something that will be a little bit more of a long term in terms of the results? Perhaps a little bit more of a long term in terms of not only my generation, but second generation, third generation, fourth generations after me? That becomes the golden rule to making decisions. They say when you want to make a decision, don't only see yourself. That's how most of us do, right? I want to make sure, for example, when I want to pick a job, what's the number one criterion that they ask? How much does it pay? What are the benefits for it, right? Who do I work for? Where do I work for? Does it provide lunch? Does it not provide lunch, right? How much is the commute? Can I work hybrid? All of it gets revolved around personal interest, yes? Religion comes and says, no, don't look at the job in a form of a personal interest. That comes with it as long as you have a proper job. But how to look at it? Try to look at it from all different aspects. Personal interest is one of them. It's actually one of the least important ones. Number one, you have to see how much of services can you provide for the sake of society, right? So when you want to choose a job that you provide more services for the sake of the public, right? Number one. Number two, try to see not only yourself, but the effects of your job on your generations to come, right? On your generations to come. Our generations is something that all of us, we're going to be benefit from. The topic of education of the children, for example, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Oh, those who claim to be believers, protect yourself and your children from the fire of the hereafter, right? Why is Allah emphasizing on this topic of protection against the fire? Not only yourself, but your children. Our children, our offsprings, our next generations. All of this becomes that baqiyatus salihat. We're giving maybe 60, 70, 80, 90. Inshallah, Allah gives you guys 300 years of life. I don't know how many years you want to live in this life, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you guys 1,000 years of life, right? But sooner or later, we got to say the bye-bye. We got to say, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What remains from us that constantly provides that path of growth and elevation, even when we are not in this world, right? So think of it in that regard. How can I choose a job? What other services can I provide? So that it will become that baqiyatus salihat for me. It doesn't have to be a very huge action. I want to change the entire world. MashaAllah, it's good. But let's start with the little step by step. Let's start with ourselves. If everybody within the community fixes one thing about themselves, the community as a whole, how many qualities does it gain? For the number of the people within the community. So let's say if here we have 100, 200 people, each person decides to fix one quality about themselves, not about anybody else. That's 200 plus qualities for the sake of the community. Yes? So think of how much of the effects would it have on the community as a whole. The very same path. And the Muharram, when we come here, when we sit down, when we talk about the ashab, when we talk about the companions, the one thing that we can learn from the topic of sacrifice. Sacrifice doesn't mean that say, okay, I have my life in my hand. Oh, Imam of time, when you do dhuhr, inshallah, I'll be there on your side. Inshallah. But what about the time of occultation? For the time of occultation, is everything on a pause mode? I'm just supposed to go back and make the most amount of money so that inshallah I can guarantee my secure future. For some it's like that. For some it's not even that. For example, when the topic of marriage happens, the topic of tawakkul and the topic of marriage, hand in hand, I would say the grand finale of test for whether we have tawakkul or not is when we decide to get married. Yes? No? What are the conditions that they have for marriage usually? I want a spouse who has a house, who has a car, who has 6 figures, and mashallah, who's healthy and who's young. What are the odds? And from the other side, I want Bibi, I want the lady who's mashallah, infallible, who's completely caring, who loves me more than everybody else, who's rich, inshallah, and I want Sayyidah Fatima Zahra to be my wife, for example, right? When it comes to the topic of tawakkul, we have to be realistic, right? It starts with that challenges of life. When it comes to the topic of sacrifice, it's not about taking the sword and say, okay, I'm here to rip my shirt for the sake of Imam al-Hussein. No, it starts from our family, the relationship that we have with our siblings, the relationships that we have with our spouses, the relationship that we have with our community members. How easily we get offended, how easily we then we don't let go of things that may have been done for the wrong reason. Mistake happens. The last time I checked, and inshallah it's still the same fact, we had only 14 infallibles and khalas, right? We don't have the 15th one, we don't have the 16th one. That means none of us are infallible, which means what? We all tend to make mistakes. Then what? We have to learn how to forgive one another. That's one simple example of sacrifice, right? Just giving up on what is truly our right, but give it up for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One simple example of sacrifice. We don't have to go way to the extreme and say, okay, these are the stuff that I'm going, but it's always imagination and imagination and imagination. Some of the famous, speakers, they always use this example. They say one of these guys who was true mourner of Imam al-Hussein, right? MashaAllah, mazhabi hayati, constantly going to the majalis. He had this one wish that, oh, Imam al-Hussein, if I only was alive at that time in the Ashura, you would have seen how brave I would have been there to defend you, for example. I would have killed every single one of those Kufis, and I would have done this. I would have brought water for you. I would have made sure everything will be sound and secure, and constant rajas after rajas, claim after claim after claim after claim. They say one night he actually has a vision. He sees himself in the land of Karbala. on the day of Ashura. And mashallah, he has studied the Maqatal so much, he knows where everything else. He goes and he spots the army of Imam al-Hussein. He goes and he says, Assalamu alaikum. Imam says, Alaikum assalam. It's like, I'm here for service, I'm here for reporting to for duty. What I'm supposed to do? Imam says, just to take a stand in front of me because I have to offer my prayer. He says, okay, that's easy enough. I'll take a stand right here. He stands up in front of Imam al-Hussein. Imam says, Allahu Akbar. The enemy attacks. How do they attack? By releasing arrows. The first arrow comes. Remember the speed? 150 miles per hour. He's looking at the arrow is coming towards him, right? What does he do? He says, I will move just a slight, centimeter to the right. No hard feeling. He moves to the right for 1 centimeter. The second arrow is released. Again, it's coming towards his chest. What does he do? He goes back to the left. The third arrow is released. He goes back to the right. The fourth goes back to left. Left, right, left, right, left, right. No matter how hard they try to hit him with an arrow, he keeps on jumping around. Then guess what? He turns around. What does he see? Yes? Imam Hussein says, is this the way you want to protect us? Is this the way you want to show your support for us? Is this the way you're going to sacrifice for us? Meaning it's not for the sake of mere of words, of claiming. Speaker included, I'm not just saying this for the sake of audience. No, myself worse than everybody else. So we have to practice it. How can we practice it? It starts with the very simple actions within our daily lives. One of the most primary ones is the way we treat one another in our family. The respect towards parents, the respect towards siblings, the respect towards elders. Within the community, how do we interact with one another, right? These becomes a very simple, again, actions in which will lead to that greatest of sacrifice. If we cannot succeed these little tiny minor actions, when it comes the biggest of the test by ourselves, Allahu A'lam, right? So that's one way of it, to focus on the reality of the dunya. The more we focus on the reality of the dunya, the more we tend to understand that, once in a while, once in a blue moon, it's okay to forgive about each other. Once in a blue moon. Inshallah, once in every moon, and inshallah, once in every week, and inshallah, once in every day, and inshallah, once in every hour. That will be the path, right? To focus on the reality of the dunya. So we have in ahadith a series of narrations in which they talk about the most, cleverest or the most smartest of people, or mu'mineen of mu'minat. They give a sign for it. They give a criterion. What is that criterion? The one who constantly reminds himself of maut, of death. In our culture, talking about a death is a taboo, right? It's like death. You don't want to talk about that. Something when you go to the graveyards, right? You go to the cemeteries, right? What do we see? MashaAllah, all of them green. It's like as if you're going to a theme park. Probably they have some rides in it, right? Everything is there, fountain, restroom, MashaAllah. You just want to go and walk in the cemetery. In reality, what are the ahadith is telling us? It constantly tells us to constantly remind yourself of death, not to be depressed about it. No, to constantly activate the sense of awareness that we have, the compass that we have. This compass gets rusty as we get as we get busy with the daily stuff. This compass gets rusty. What's the way to reshape it? What's the way to clean it? What's the way to make it all fresh and ready to use? Remind ourselves of death. Not death as an end. Death as a whole new beginning. The beginning that does not have an end. That's the reality of death, right? A beginning that has no end to it. That's what makes it scary, but it makes it at the same time the best of the opportunities that we can gain from. So they say up to 25 times per day, remind yourself of death. Meaning constantly get re-energized. One of the brothers was asking in the youth session that we have, what should we do or what can we do to avoid depression? My answer was this: mu'min or mu'mina would never become depressed because we have faith. If there is no faith, yes, we have to talk about it. But when you have faith on everlasting, there's absolutely no sense of becoming depressed because one single act, it changes your entire existence forever, not for a period of time for 60 or 70 years that we're going to live in this world. And who knows even that long, right? So the matter of depression goes out by itself. Mu'min and mu'mina is constantly seeking opportunities. It's constantly looking for like a higher form or higher sense of opportunities. It's constantly motivated. It constantly has that energy. It's constantly striving for the best. So they say as the sign of the true Shias is that no matter what they do, they become the best in it. If they're a doctor, they become the best doctor. If they're an engineer, they become the best engineer. If they're a teacher, they become the best teacher, right? What they do, why so? Because they're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not doing it for the sake of the money. The money comes with it. They're not doing it for the sake of the lunch. They're not doing it for the sake of the company. They're not doing it for the sake of how much share and retirement plans or like whatever thing, like benefits they get from the job. They do it for the sake of that public work, right? So they put the best effort that they have. That becomes a sign of a Shia. So one, getting in a habit of focusing and contemplating on the reality of the dunya. That's one. Two, focusing on the rewards of the hereafter. You know, the strategy of the stick or a carrot in which sometimes we use, in a sense we can apply it in the same paradigm here. What's the stick? The reality of the dunya, right? What's the carrot? The rewards of the hereafter. So the more we get to have this stuff been run over our minds, but again, it has to be in a constant, motion. It cannot be only once a year. It cannot be only the 10 days of Muharram. It cannot be only the 30 days of the month of Ramadan. No, those are just the starting point, right? MashaAllah, we start good, but we don't maintain it. If you don't agree, come back here on the day after Ashura or any of the masajid. On the week after Ashura, I usually say this one, every masjid becomes the masjid of Kufa. You cannot find even one or two people within the masjid. What happened? Everybody, mashallah, reached that sense of perfection and kamal. Everybody became mashallah, the shaheed on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or no, that's just the starting point. We changed the gear, we put it on the first gear, we did all of the work, all of the hustle and bustle, we put the energy, the first gear, the toughest one. Now that we're going to shift to the second gear, everything changes and everybody goes different ways. Yes? No, it has to be in a constant progress, constant planning. It has to become part of our life. That's why we call it lifestyle. Style is not once a year. It's not 10 days out of the 360 plus days, right? No, it becomes part of the life that we are living in. This memory of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, it has to be embedded within our lifestyle. The way that he lived his life, the way the companions that lived their life. The very simple things that we can make modification. Those who have gone to the ziyarah trip, they know. Once you go to ziyarah trip, you find yourself in heaven, especially when you're at the shrine of the imams, yes? The minute you walk out, as if the world changes. What's the difference? In terms of a physical distance, what's the difference? The difference is one step. Inside of the shrine, outside of the shrine, yes? 50, 60, whatever, how length is your step. 1 meter is the difference. Why it changes so much? And this is not only for Muslims. I'll give you a memory of myself. One Friday morning, I went to the shrine of Imam al-Raza, and in the corner, there is this courtyard, they call it courtyard of Qadir. Usually, some of the foreigners, when they come to see and visit the shrines of Imam al-Raza, they take him there. I happened to walk in there accidentally, and I saw, mashallah, this group of people that by the look, they had absolutely nothing with Shiism. Imagine what they were wearing. They all were wearing leather, jackets, leather pants. MashaAllah, faces all tattooed, big chains. They shaved head, long beards, and this sunglasses, right? Guess who were they? About 20 of them. And MashaAllah, they were all huge, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". When I looked at them, I'm Ya Allah. Right? So who were they? They were bikers. All Harley Davidson bikers, about 20 of them, all in one corner at the shrine of Imam al-Rida. Think about that. On a Friday morning, when everybody's reciting Dua Nudba. So you connect the dots. I went up to them and started talking to them, right? To say, okay, what are you guys doing here in shrine of Imam Friday morning? So one of them started talking to me and he told me this story. He said, we're a group of bikers. What we do every year, we have this plan for 2 months. We go from one country to another country to another country by our bikes. Now, we plan everything ahead. So, for example, 2 days here, 2 days there, 2 days here. Some of the places we have to send our bikes in advance because we cannot, for example, take the pass. So we ship our bikes ahead of time. Once we get there, the bikes are there. We get on it. We start biking. I'm like, wow, mashallah. So what are you doing at the shrine of Imam Raza? He says, well, we were not supposed to be here. Where were we supposed to be here? It's like we had this tour guide. He was supposed to take us to such and such desert around the Khurasan. What happened? He could not make the arrangement in time. So we lost 1 day. Losing 1 day, that means all of the plans would get ruined. Now you have to postpone everything, right? It comes in a chain of effects. So he felt so bad. So because he was kind of stingy person, he told us, to make it up for you, I will take you guys to this place. It's a very great place. People come here to take pictures. And guess what? Everything is free. I'm like, everything is free. MashaAllah. Right? Everything is free. Yes. We didn't know. So last night, which is the Thursday night, the night of Friday, he said he brought us to this place. He didn't know the name. He was saying this place. It's like we walked from one door, right? And we didn't go inside. We just walked from the main yard. There was a big yard. And we walked to the left side. About 5-10 minutes we were walking. We took a picture. And then we left. We went back to the hotel. So every night, before we go to sleep, we huddle. We get together and we talk about the stuff that we have done on the day. And we make up the plans for the next day, that which activities we're going to do for the next day. He said on that night, as we got together, all 20 of us, and these guys are bikers, right? All 20 of us were looking at one another, and we were saying, whatever that place was that we went, everything was free. We want to go back there one more time. Why? When I asked him, he says, because the sense of peacefulness that you feel in this place, you cannot find it anywhere else in the world. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So even from a perspective of someone who is not technically a Shia, 12 Imami Shia, yes? Now, what's the difference? Why when we step outside of the shrine, everything changes? Yes? Can we do something in order to maintain some of that peacefulness even here? Not only at the masjid, not only at the Muharram, but inshallah at our home, in our cars, towards our work, perhaps in our work? Is it possible? Yes. What's the way to it? Change minor things. Adapt to the culture of the Islamic culture more and more as much as we can. Start with minor things. Start with like looking at what are the stuff is makruh to have in the house, remove them. Some of the stuff is haram to have inside of the house, remove them. Simple stuff. Once you do it, once you go over it, it's done, right? Then you see the results. For example, it's highly recommended to recite the azan of the morning prayer and maghrib prayer out loud in your home. That's one of the mustahabbat mu'akkad, right? Recite the azan in the loud voice. You don't have to only sing when you go to the shower. No, inshallah, in the morning and the maghrib prayer, recite out the azan in the loud voice, for example. That by itself brings so much barakat to the house. As long as we don't have the stuff which will prevent and block the barakat from entering the house, such as keeping a dog inside of the house, such as keeping an idol inside of the house, such as keeping the pictures of live like species inside of the house. These are the stuff which angels do not like. Now, you want to argue about it, that's something else. The angels do not like it, right? So once you do a small modification, that's the whole topic of the Islamic lifestyle, yes? So when we want to make ourselves ready for that great sacrifice, again, we have to start with these tiny steps, minor changes over time. Not to do everything dramatically to the point that we cannot maintain it. No, rather do it slowly and gradually. And inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will provide more than we can handle. It takes one moment. Let's go to the land of Karbala, and inshallah, as we get closer and closer to the day of Ashura, on these days, as it becomes the 3 days up to the day of Ashura, usually the masa'ib of al-atash is heard around the majalis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Now, when it comes to the movement of Imam al-Hussein, and when it comes to how beautiful Imam al-Hussein is able to constantly provide the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of those who mourn for him, there are numerous cases and numerous stories in which people have actually received not only what they wished for, but tons more of what they had asked for when it came to interchange with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. One of the famous story is of a great famous man who was known for being the sinner of the community. And who is narrating the story? The scholar who actually goes to visit his house. He said one of the Muharram, he had a majlis at his house. We went to his house. As we entered the house, he had the food ready for us. We noticed that he has a picture on the wall. Guess what was that picture on the wall? We looked closer. It was a picture of a janazah, picture of a corpse, of a dead body on his wall. We asked him, what is this picture? He said, well, first you're my guest, so have food. Let's let's go step by step. Once you have the food, once you have the majlis, inshallah, I will tell you about the picture. We had the food, we had the majlis, everything was done and said. Then we asked the same question, what is this picture on the wall? Why do you keep a picture of a dead body on your wall? He said, that picture is my story. How? He said, I used to be the most sinful person within my community, to the point that every single person knew me by name, that every time I would walk by, people would run away. Would say, oh, he's the one who's heading for hell. Nobody wants to interact with me. He says on the Muharrams, when it would come, I would go to the majalis just to score some freebies, get some free chai, free teas, free food, and that was my habit. He says one day of Muharram, I went to get a free tea from this mukib, from this majlis that was set up. The guy who was pouring tea, he looked up to me, he recognized my face, he says, go away, this tea is not for you. I became heartbroken at that moment. I didn't know where else to go. So I came aside from the line that they were offering tea. And as I was going back towards my home, the main head guy who was in charge of that mukib, he saw me. He came up to me. He nodded me on my shoulder and he says, hey, how's everything going? We need some help today. Would you be able to help us out? I was really happy. I was like, that guy doesn't give me tea, but this guy is asking me for help. Why not? What can I do? He said, we're running out of sugar for the tea. Would you be able to go and run to the store and buy 2 kilos worth of sugar and come back quickly so we can continue serving tea? He says, I said, Chashm. I said, yes. And I ran to the store, bought 2 kilos of sugar, came back. On the way back, another friend of mine who also had a mukib saw me. Says, oh, wow, how great that I see you with the bag of sugar. We ran out of sugar as well. Can you give us that sugar and then go and buy some more for your own mukib? I was like, okay, you have this one, I'll go and buy another 2 kilos of sugar. He says, I gave him the bag and I went back to run to the store to buy another extra 2 sets of kilos of sugar. On the way, an accident happened. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I saw my own body as if I was looking at my own body from the top. Now, all of a sudden, the angels, the punishment angels, they came after me. All of the bad deeds and the sinful deeds that I had done in my life, all of them were showering back into mine one by one, and they were just piling up, and they were dragging me towards the punishment. As they were dragging me, all of a sudden, I saw this bright, like a moon, man who came and approached the angels. He told them to stop. The angel says, okay. He told them to let go of me. The angel says, but he has done so much sinful conduct, there's absolutely no way that we can let go of him. He kept on saying, I insist. The angel says, but look at the report. He looked at the report. He said one line. He said, but he bought 2 kilos worth of sugar for my mukib. Let go of him. The angel says, but 2 kilo worth of sugar, even for your mukib, even for your majlis, is not going to add up to all of the sinful deeds that he has done. Then the person who was Abu Abdullah Hussein repeated his request and says, okay, don't take the 2 kilo, but remove sins for every piece of sugar that is within the 2 kilo bag, and remove the sins for the same amount from his report card. The angels do the calculation, says that's still not enough. He has done so much bad. Then Imam says he had the intention of buying 2 extra kilos of sugar. Go ahead and remove the sins for that same amount as well. The angels did the calculation, still he comes out short. His entire life he's been sinful. Imam al-Hussein says, whatever it has done, I'll guarantee you, he will buy out as many weight of sugar that you need, just for the sake of me, Hussein ibn Ali. Forgive him and give him a second chance. The minute he said this, my soul came back to my body. I woke up, I stand up while people were all surrounding me, and this picture that you see on the wall is the very same picture they took from my body when I passed away on that instance. Just to find an excuse to find the tie with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. That how merciful Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is. We call him the Ark of Salvation, right? The lantern of guidance. He's constantly waiting and calling upon every single one of us to finally say that labbaik and follow the teachings of Abu Abdullah. He's looking for that excuse. It becomes upon me and you to give him that excuse. Now tonight, let's go and talk about someone who perhaps was the most dear of all to Imam al-Hussein. Those who are fathers, those who are mothers, they know. As their kids, they grow up, as they reach the age of their youth, the prime of their life, especially when they become pious and well known for piety, every single time the parents look at their child, they say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As if all of the hardships and difficulties they have gone through, it has been answered back to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the relationship between Imam al-Ma'asum and his child, it goes to the perfection level when it comes to the matter of sensation. Now, on the day of Ashura, when all of the ashab have come and gone, it becomes the turn for Bani Hashim. Who is the first one who comes up to Abu Abdullah Hussein, asking him for permission? They say it's Hazrat Ali ya Akbar, who comes up to Abu Abdullah Hussein and respectfully asks for a permission. Oh father, do I have a permission to go to the battlefield? Imam al-Hussein immediately responds to him, yes, my dear son, go ahead, go to the battlefield. But my son, wait for 1 second. Before you go to the battlefield, go back to the Khaymegah and say your farewell to your aunties. They've been waiting for you for the entire day. Hazrat Ali Akbar goes back to the Khaymegah. He enters the Khayma, he enters the tents. Sayyida Zainab, Sayyida Kulsum, they're waiting for him. As they look at him, he says his salam. Alaykunna minni as-salam, ya Ahl al-Khiyam. My salam, my last farewell be upon you, O the people of the Khaymegah. Sayyida Zainab looks at Ali Akbar as she says one line. She says, Arham ghurbatana. Oh Ali Akbar, you're talking about a farewell. If you have to say your farewell, that's fine. But oh Ali Akbar, have mercy upon the ghurbat that we have among all of these enemies. Nobody's left from the ashab. You're the one from Bani Hashim. Don't go, Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar does not know how to respond back to the Sayyida Zainab. He's about to leave the Khayma. Sayyida Zainab asks for the second request. He says, oh Ali Akbar, as you are going, just make sure you walk around the Khayma one more time so we can take a look at you one last time as you resemble Nabi Rasulullah to us. Every time we forget and we missed about Nabi Rasulullah, we used to look at you, oh Ali Akbar. Just take some steps around the Khayma. Imagine that when Sayyida Zainab has such a difficulty to say farewell to Ali Akbar, he comes out, he gets on the horse, he has his helmet, he has his armor, he has his sword. As he's about to go towards the Maidan Qatlegah, the Maghtal says Abu Abdullah al-Hussein comes behind him. He goes on the horse. Imam Imam is walking on his feet. He's looking as Ali Akbar as he's going towards Qatl-Gah. فَنَظَرَ نَظْرَةً آيَسًا. He looks at Ali Akbar with a hopeless look, as if the youth is gone for good. He holds on to his beard. He looks at the sky. He says, oh Allah, bear witness, I'm sending the one towards these enemies of you who has the most resemblance to Nabi Rasulullah, khalqan, khulqan, wa mantiqan. Oh Allah, bear witness. The Maqtal says the tears were rolling down from the eyes of Imam al-Hussein as Ali Akbar is about to hit the Maqtal and to hit the Qawdal of Qatl-Gah. He starts entering the Qawdal of Qatl-Gah. He starts introducing himself. Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. One of those Mal'unin keeps on yelling, oh, his name is Ali. He's the grandson of the Ali. We know what to do with you. The battle starts to take off. 1v1, no problem for him. 2-on-1, no problem. 3-on-1, no problem. Group versus one, no problem. Ali Akbar keeps on hitting left and right. Some report says up to 120 people he kills. No matter which side of the enemy he attacks, he keeps on killing all of them, as if he realizes that there is something wrong in the picture. So they say he makes a turn. It's not normal for someone who goes to the battlefield to come back again one more time. But Ali and Al-Akbar turns around. He comes back one more time to take a look at the beautiful face of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, who's constantly looking over him. Some say because Ali Akbar felt that he is missing Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Some others say no, it was because Imam al-Hussein could not give up completely on Ali and Al-Akbar. There was this attachment between Waliullah and his son. That's why nobody could get to Ali Akbar on the first charge. He comes up to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. He says, Ya Aba, inna al-atasha qad qatalani. Oh Father, the thirst is killing me. The weight of the armor is killing me. It's heavy on my shoulder. As an excuse to say, oh Abu Abdullah, you have to let go of me. Imam al-Hussein embraces Ali and Al-Akbar. In one narration says that he removes his tongue and he places in the mouth of Ali al-Akbar, telling him that, oh my son, I'm even more thirstier than you are. But be patient, oh Ali Akbar. Soon you will be quench your thirst by the hands of Nabi Rasulullah, by the hands of Amir al-Mu'mineen, by the hands of Sayyida Fatima al-Zahra. Make sure you send them my salam, as I'll be following you soon, short after you. Ali Akbar heads back towards the Maidan of Qatl-Gah. This time he's charging against with all of the power that he has. They try to surround him. They start to attack him from every angle. One tries to get to him from behind with the mirror club on his head. Another one from the side. He sticks a spear on the side of Ali Akbar. He calls out, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. He falls down on the horse. The blood from the head covers the eyes of the horse. The horse, instead of going back towards the khayma, he goes inside of the enemy lines and the line of the maqtal. فَأَقَّتُوهُ إِرْبًا 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 إِرْبًا. They start to cut him into pieces by pieces by pieces. Imam al-Hussein is looking at his youth as the one who has most resemblance, and all he sees are the swords of the enemy going up to the sky, and they coming down on the body of Ali Akbar. When he hears the sound, he rushes towards the body of Ali Akbar. They say as Zuljanah gets close to where Ali Akbar body is on the ground, Imam does not wait for the Zuljanah to stop. He drops himself on the plains of Karbala. Now he's looking for the body of Ali Akbar. But what a body it is. Which side to pick, which part to pick, Allahu Alam. The Maqtal says Imam start walking on his knees He could not stand up straight. He walks on the knees. He gets closer to the body, to the remaining body of Ali Akbar. He looks at the body. He leans forward. He puts the side of his face to the side of the face of Ali Akbar. And there is pitch silence. The enemies think that Imam al-Hussein is finished. They start doing halala. They start having this joy and claps as they're doing this. Sayyida Zainab hears the halala. She rushes out from the khayma. She sees Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. She sees the urban body of Ali Akbar. She runs towards Abu Abdullah, pats him on the side. Imam al-Hussein comes back to his senses. He's ghayratullah. He gets up immediately, holds on to Sayyida Zainab and calls out, "Oh, the youth of Bani Hashim, ey Javanan Bani Hashim, come and grab the body of Ali Akbar." My question to you, how many persons does it take to take a body back from the battlefield to the Khaymegah? One, maximum two, maybe three. They say in the report up to 16 members of Bani Hashim, they all came in order to pick up the pieces of body of Ali Akbar and place it in the abba of Imam al-Hussein, be able to take the body back to the khayma of Darul Harb. And Imam al-Hussein is constantly looking at the scene. Hazrat Abbas says, by the will of Allah, at least cover the body, so Imam would not take a look at the La ilaha illallah. The urban body of Ali Akbar. They take the body to Darul Harb. Imam al-Hussein is looking at the body of Ali Akbar. He raises his hand to the sky. He says, "Oh Omar Asad, may Allah cut off your offspring as you have cut off mine. Oh Omar Asad, may Allah take all of the blessings away from your life." As he's talking, Sayyida Zainab comes in. Again, Sayyida Zainab to the rescue. How is she able to help Imam al-Hussein? The minute she walks in, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, that ghayratullah, he gets up, he leaves the tent. Now it is come toward the time of Bani Hashim. Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بثنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد وعلى أصحاب الحسين. One more time. السلام على وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. يا الله يا الله يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والنصر واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعته. اللهم اجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. اللهم اشف أمراضنا وارحم أمواتنا. Oh Allah, will ask you on the right of Abu Abdullah, on the right of Ali Akbar, on the right of Sayyida Zainab Salamullah alayha. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, hasten the appearance of Imam of Time. Oh Allah, put our name among his true companions. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide forgiveness upon all of us and upon all of the marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, will ask you to provide shafa and cure for all of those who are facing difficulties and sicknesses in this world. Oh Allah, will ask you to answer the hawaij of mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world. Oh Allah, will ask you on your grace and mercy to accept this majalis and to extend the sawab of this majalis to the souls of ulama and maraji and shuhada and marhumin and marhumat. Oh Allah, oh Allah, oh Allah, will ask you to tie our steps with the steps of Abu Abdullah, to give us the bounty and the life of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, and to give us the death of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Oh Allah, will ask you to grant all of us the ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt in this dunya, and inshallah their shafa'a in the hereafter. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد